Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever Three Men and a Football, or we could have called it Two Average Footballers and a Not So Average Manager.
And Thomas, really.
Yeah. I was thinking about the name earlier. And we could have come up with some classics.
We could have, and the name might obviously change throughout the rest of this podcast.
I think it's got to include Billy Birch at some stage.
Listen, mate, he's outside my house putting his table up ready for his medals.
If he gets his medals out, I'm going home.
Yeah, go cup.
All right, so we thought we'd get together and do a little podcast and focus on football in general, amateur, professional, whatever it may be. Have a bit of a conversation, see if people are interested in listening to our opinions. I mean, that we know that once Darren gets into the 5 fundamentals of football.
To be fair, if I have to mention the 5 fundamentals of football in every podcast, I will. I forget 3 of them. That's the problem.
Well, you may have to introduce Thomas to them at some stage. Maybe that's one podcast on its own.
Listen, it's only going to be 20 minutes. We need hours.
And Thomas,
2 minutes, and I've had abuse already.
Have you made sure that Rachel is out the room and can't get in?
The door's closed. The dogs aren't barking. I'm on my own.
Do you know
how long that lasts, I don't know.
This feels a bit like the Gervais podcast, and he's our Carl Pilkington.
Yeah. Yeah. Hang on, what are you minding?
Darren, I'm going to burst you.
All right, so we thought about questions and stuff. We come up with loads, but the one that we wanted to start with was the debate on your best 5 players of all time. So I didn't put this in any order, but I'm going to do it on the fly. And I think you should do the same, and we should start with number 5. I've just made it much more difficult than what we originally talked about.
Because all that preparation we did beforehand has gone to pot now.
Yeah, but that's all part of it. It's part of the fun. All right, so I'll go first with my number 5, and it might be a little bit controversial.
Not like you, that side at all.
Well, my number 5 is Messi.
Ooh. Interesting. Can you tell me why?
Controversial.
Why is he 5? Is that
for me, right? So Messi's amazing, and when we watch football now, he's as good as anyone I've ever seen in some games. But there's games where he goes missing, and you watch him, right, and he drifts in and out of games as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. For me, would he cut it in the county com? That's the question. That's the question I would answer. Because, I played in the county com, and some hairy arse fella's going to kick him up in the air.
If he had to go away to East Villa. But yeah, I reckon...
He does bounce, though. The lad bounces when he gets kicked. He's amazing. Yeah. His bounce back ability is right up there with the best players.
Bounce back ability.
Have you got that special toilet paper again?
That's brilliant. Where did the week toilet paper? But I reckon he's number 5 for me, just because there are so many amazing players that so I've seen a lot of them in the last maybe 5 years, but I just think there are players that are a lot better than him, and even players that are closer to home as well, who impact games more than he does. But when he runs the game, it's all on him.
That's an interesting one, Matt, because my number 5 is someone you probably wouldn't even have thought of. I'll be honest with you. But growing up, I went through a stage where I wanted to be this position, and it's Neville Southall.
Really?
Yeah. Now, one Christmas, I asked my mum and dad for the Everton goalie top. Obviously, I didn't get it because my dad bought me it. But Southall, for me, when you look back, he was world number 1. He was a superb goalie.
He was
unbelievable. And growing up in the city, it was even more highlighted. So I think Neville Southall should be in there because of his ability. Was just far, far better than what I've ever seen previously.
He was outstanding. But you remember the fella who played in goal for Russia, and was it Van Basten scored that goal where he?
Oh, the volley.
The volley. Was that? What's his name? Desayev?
Not sure.
Amazing keeper. And those two at that stage were seen as the kind of 2 top keepers. for me, Southall was unbelievable. He made saves like you wouldn't believe. The best thing about him was his command of his box was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and his
I'm going to disagree.
Oh, we are.
Liverpool's number 2 at the time was Steve Agricevic.
Here we go.
I would go for him every day of the week.
To be honest, mate, I thought you'd go for
I'm going to tell you now. I scored against Southall on Chilwell School on our summer. It was either the summer fete or the Christmas fete. He was in goal, and mate, I scored one shot, one goal.
List. I've scratched them off my list, mate. I didn't realise you'd score past them.
Thomas scored against them. We're done.
Yeah. I hope you're in his book. Are you in his book? I would imagine you're in his book.
No. I don't know whether he's wrote a book, to be honest.
The bin man.
As you know, I'm not a big fan of Everton. Or anyone that doesn't play in red.
All right, Tom, what's yours? What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Ian Rush.
Oh, nice.
And
do you know what? Let me just put this out there. I'm surprised that we started at number 5 with a Liverpool player.
Yeah, I am as well.
Well, mine are pretty loaded.
This top 5 Liverpool players, is it?
So recently, we've just had a thing sent around Facebook, and I think I sent it to Simon, and it was name 4 players, or name the players that made you fall in love with football.
Thanks, mate.
And I sent it to a few people. I don't know if you got it, Darren. I'm not sure. But when I was thinking about it and why I fell in love with Liverpool and how I feel about football was all about, initially, was about John Barnes, Ian Rush and Kenny Dalglish. And to a lesser extent, Alan Hansen, because they were just outstanding. And I don't know, I was maybe 7 or 8. And Liverpool were at the pinnacle and the greatest team in the world at the time. The city was bouncing, Liverpool were winning every week. And I just remember street parties watching the cup final and pretending to be Ian Rush. And Everton was scoring against us. And remember the 3-2 FA Cup final game? Yeah. And Rush scored. And it was just, he scored 2. He scored 2. And Stuart McCall, I think.
He scored a volley from the edge of the area, didn't he?
Yeah. He was horrible, him. Horrible.
Put a tackle in as well, didn't he?
He was just horrible. He was ginger. He was Scottish, and he played for Everton.
Gingers.
Yeah, I'm married. So, Ian Rush gave me just amazing joy when I was a kid, and he scored lots of goals, and we had street parties on FA Cup finals for him, or for Liverpool, and he made the day by winning us. So, number 5 for me would have to be Ian Rush, one of the greatest goal scorers that's ever lived.
Yeah, so just not have to do the 4 Liverpool players.
I haven't. Well, they may have been on loan at Liverpool.
I reckon Ian Rush might be listening to this and get Thomas to do his funeral.
Yeah, definitely. Can you do a eulogy?
Yeah.
All right, Thomas, you go to number 4 then.
Oh, number 4. I hate him.
Oh, thanks,
I hate him with a passion. I hate him. More than I hate Thierry Henry. It's Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Why number 4 though?
He's because he's the modern day Ian Rush, isn't he? Now he's the greatest goal scorer on the planet. He's proved it in England, Spain, now in Italy. I think he just broke the scoring record in Italy, scoring in consecutive games.
Yeah.
And especially where their whole game is about stopping people scoring and tactically just breaking games down and trying to destroy the opposition.
I tell you what I do like about Ronaldo for me is he's the complete footballer for me.
Yeah.
He can run with it, he can pass, he can move, he can his heading is phenomenal. And I just think if you're looking at a blueprint for a footballer, he's got to be up there.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of those players that when you watch him play, you think, I'd love to be able to do what he does with the ball. It's unbelievable.
If you're looking for desire and will to win, then he'd probably be number 1. I don't think there's anyone with the desire and the will to score every time he gets on the ball. The reason why he's number 4 for me is he's not a very good team player. He's very, very selfish, and it's all about him. And Me and Simon have had this discussion over other players that I didn't like, but because of their attitude and like, I don't care about the other 10 as long as I score and as long as then I'm happy and that's all that matters.
It's funny,
I hate that
because I know someone very close to me who has a similar outlook. and he was brilliant, and he was a goal scorer, and he was one of the best players in the amateur game in Liverpool. But he was exactly like that as well.
Yeah, he was. Very selfish. He was the most.
Didn't trade, and he didn't care about anybody else.
And when he turned up to games, he'd eat like a pie before playing.
Yeah.
And a packet of Watsons.
Yeah, and score 3.
Okay, so I'll go with my number 4 then. So my number 4 is Maradona. So Maradona is potentially the best player ever. However, I don't think I've seen enough of him. So the players who are left on my list, I've seen more of. Maradona was unbelievable, and he carried that Argentinian team to the World Cup. And he was unbelievable for 2 World Cups. However, I just didn't see enough of him. So he gets in my top 5 definitely, but couldn't break into the top 3.
Yeah, so I like Maradona a lot. I think his ability and his pace and his drive and his determination was superb. But my number 4, you're probably thinking, is he drunk tonight? Well, I went for Lothar Matthäus.
Oh, what a player! What a player!
The reason I went for Matthäus is because he just seemed to be in the World Cups he played in. He controlled the game from start to finish. Whether he played in the midfield, whether he played in that German sweeper system, where the sweeper used to come through the centre halves and get involved in the play and then drop back. He was just a clever footballer, and he wasn't particularly quick. And that for me was like, well, I wasn't particularly quick. And I thought, do you know what? I like that as a player, just a thinking man's player.
Do you know what, mate? As a comparison of amateur versus top end player, that's a really good comparison for you.
You stop it, mate.
No, you played. I mean, not now these days because you're old and even so than you were years ago. But you played the game. If you remember when we were playing at the Zabs and we were a real quality side. Although we only ever really played 4 at the back, unless Billy wanted to drop Colin Butterworth. Whenever we went to 3 at the back.
To be fair, Colin couldn't play 3 at the back.
He couldn't apparently, no. But you used to play like a sweeper, so what you do, in fact, you still do it today. Whoever plays next to you, you make them win the ball more often than not, and you're sweeping all the time, and you're making up for everyone right across the pitch. And then you also go and get involved in the play. Obviously, you don't go over the halfway line once a year, maybe.
To be fair, mate, it's like a wall that I get pulled back, like a Tesco trolley. I can't get out.
It's hilarious the way people respond when you do it as well. Everyone's like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah. But Lothar Matthäus for me,
brilliant.
Class act. And in the German side, that was so efficient.
They were brilliant. All right, Daz, go for number 3.
Well, it backs up what you said for number 4, Maradona.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, his hand of God didn't go down too well in our house.
I can just imagine Jeff's reaction.
Oh, yeah. We got to tell him we paid eventually. But it was for me, it was just his second goal in that game was absolutely stunning.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And I think when you see him in Napoli, because it was Italia, I think Channel 4 did the Italian leagues around then as well.
Yeah.
And you saw him a little bit more. I could be wrong, but he was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he
was. Pictures of him warming up with socks but it's just,
Have you seen that video of him where he's warming up but he doesn't drop the ball for about 5 minutes? He's just got it in the air and he's knocking it up in the air really high.
Yeah.
I could do that once, never mind 20 times.
To be fair, I'll have to run after it. It'll be a problem for me.
I think you have got a bit of an advantage over me because I'm only 40 and you have obviously got years on me. But
surely your mind should be better.
I didn't see a lot of Maradona. I've seen highlights and I've seen bits of the documentary and I've heard about the Oasis brothers going to going across to Argentina. But I didn't see a lot of him. Obviously, from the amount of accolades he gets and people still talking about him now, he must have been something special. But I don't really know a lot.
But you know, it was funny enough. He was a lot like Messi, but he had a different side to him. So, you know, at times Messi will get aggressive and he'll leave the foot in, but he doesn't do it that often. Generally, he's bouncing off players. Well, Maradona had that angry streak, and he'd go over the ball every so often. He'd leave his foot in all the time.
Yeah.
Messi just didn't have that, but he had all of the ability as Messi. His ability to keep hold of the ball and ghost past people was crazy.
I remember in one game in the World Cup, he dropped his shoulder and 4 players went the other way.
The one against England. The one against England where literally everyone went the other way.
Yeah, poor Peter He's still running after him.
All right, Thomas, go to your number 3.
My number 3, I'm a little bit torn because...
Is he a Liverpool player?
The 2 of the greatest players that I've seen have both played for Liverpool. But I also have seen a couple of worldies come and play. So I'll have to go number 3. It's going to have to be Zidane.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's an absolute magician. And I watched the little video on social media the other day about him. He was like a 14 stone, 15 stone ballerina.
Yeah.
And he'd send the shoulder one way and he'd shimmy the opposite way. And his legs would go in one direction and then he'd pivot and do a little spin and go the opposite way. The balance of the man was just unreal. And his vision was magic.
Yeah.
For those people who can't see Thomas doing that lovely movement, I was quite proud of you. You've got the hip I didn't think you'd have.
He looks a lot like Zidane as well.
Very similar to Zidane.
Yeah. So my number 3 is Steven Gerrard. So Steven Gerrard for me is the complete midfielder, the best midfielder I've ever seen. I think we've been blessed in this country, though. You've got people like Scholes. Lampard was great in his day as well. And then we've seen some great foreign midfielders as well, like Vieira, Petit, amazing players. But Gerrard was better than all of them by a long, long way. Because he had something that none of them had. In fact, I listened to his chat with Gary Neville last week. And he talked a lot about, for years, it must have been 5+ years, he played out of position.
Yeah.
And the reason he played out of position was no manager wanted to drop him because he was too good. But they also wanted to get other people into the game. But what you knew is, no matter where you put Gerrard, he was going to run the game. He's played games for Liverpool at fullback and ran the game from fullback. Now, we're seeing a bit of that now with Alexander-Arnold running the game from fullback. I think he does it in a different way. So Gerrard would run it through commitments, through pressure, through running all day, whereas Alexander-Arnold is doing it different. What he's doing is he's impacting the game with his passing, with his ability. I think Gerrard is different. He used to drive the game, but he was just unbelievable.
So what annoyed me was when we had players like Scholes, Lampard and Gerrard, and quite often Gerrard would be put on the left or Scholes would be put on the left. And I think if they were all playing for Spain, they'd have found a system.
Yeah, they would have played 3 in the middle.
Yeah, but I think we were almost saying, oh yeah, these are our players, but we're just going to put them anyway.
Well, I think what happened as well was Lampard was the one, wasn't he? He wanted to play Lampard in the middle because Lampard couldn't play anywhere else. And then it was fit in around Lampard, not because they were building the team around him, but he was like the 3rd or 4th best midfielder in the country, so you had to play him. And he could only play in the middle.
And he also scored a lot of goals, Lampard, didn't he?
Yeah.
I just find it a little bit, when we had Beckham, Scholes, Lampard and Gerrard, you're going to be pressed to find a better midfield we've ever had.
I seen a picture the other day of that England team where you had Ferdinand at the back and Rooney up front, and it was ridiculous. And I seen the picture, and the comment was, how can I tell my kids that we didn't win anything with this team?
Yeah.
Because at the time, you'd have put, as individuals, you'd have put them up against every country. And that's why, we're a bit crazy as England fans. I think the other thing is we're football fans as well. So we're much more about the club. We're much more about amateur football. But you can't help but get dragged into the national game. And especially when you've got a team of players like that. Nowadays, I just think it's a bit of a farce. There's too many friendlies. It doesn't really work. In those days, it was all about the World Cup. It was all about the Euros.
But I think genuinely, we had world-class players that we'd never had before, that amount.
Yeah,
You
you're
know
right.
what I mean? And that amount of world-class players, when you look at like Beckham's crossing and Beckham's passing was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Gerrard speaks for himself. Lampard's goals from Scholesy was like, if he'd have playing for Spain, he'd got 100 odd caps.
Yeah.
And I just think, are we going to have that nucleus again? I know I've gone off the subject a little bit, but I just get disappointed when I see Gerrard playing on the left because he was such a world-class player.
Yeah. Well, touching on what Simon just said before on the Gary Neville show, what he does where you view your career, Gerrard makes a massively important point, which he said if he could go back again and do his career over again, he would tell managers that he's not willing to move, as in move positions and stay central midfield. He said he lost out on showing people actually how good he was. People thought he was absolutely amazing, but at times if he's playing on the left or he was playing out wide on the right or playing at the top of one of the of front three, sometimes he wasn't at his best, even though he's probably one of the best players on the pitch. He wasn't at his best and showing us what he could do. And when he played centrally, he was outstanding.
Yeah, he was. He ran games, didn't he? And it was almost easier for him to run the game from that position as well.
I mean, he loved that sort of almost quarterback role at times.
Yeah.
Where he'd knock that ball 60 yards and the guy would be in his stride, and that's...
But his ball around the corner was ridiculous as well, like Trent says now, his ball around the corner to find a player. You mentioned Zidane before. Zidane did the same thing.
Yeah.
But I always remember listening to Zidane about players like Gerrard and Scholes, and I seen something about Zidane the other day saying the one midfielder that he pushed for Real Madrid to get was Gerrard because he wanted to play centre mid with him.
Yeah.
He said he was the best player in the world.
Yeah. All right.
Before we move on, Steven Gerrard is my number 2. So that misses me out on the next round. So.
All right. Daz?
Okay, so this one is just a hero of mine, and I love the man. I genuinely love the man. So much so, I had a tracksuit when he brought them out. Paul Gascoigne.
Oh, brilliant.
So Gaza for me was...
Is your number 3?
No, I said my number 3 before was Maradona.
Oh, number 2, your number 2.
Yeah. So I've gone to Gaza. He was funny on the pitch. He was funny off it. He had a personality. I just found myself just idolising the guy. And he brought a range of tracksuits out. And I'm not saying I regret it, but I didn't come off the best in these tracksuits. but what was great is Gaza was that chubby kid who was just brilliant. Yeah. And for me growing up, I just loved the way he could say in games. And I watched the documentary on him about a couple of nights ago. And I found myself getting emotionally attached to it because he was such a waste. When he left Tottenham, he got that injury in the cup final, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
And
the one where he tackled the was it Nottingham Forest?
Gary Charles or someone.
He should have been sent off.
Oh, it was a terrible tackle.
Yeah, terrible challenge, and he admits that. But I just think I just loved him so much. He could just turn the games and he tells stories of like when in the games he was flicking people's ears and flicking them, pinching them, and because he was just loved the game so much. And everyone who comes across him, Venables, Robson, Lineker, these top guys, just idolise him.
But it's like that one picture where he's got hold of Vinnie Jones's balls.
Vinnie Jones got hold of his balls.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so do you know what he says? Gaza tells a story where he says he was up against Vinnie and Vinnie said, stay there, I'll be back in a minute. And he stood there.
Because you would.
He waited for him to come back and then he carried on, But so he's my number 2. I just idolised him.
Yeah, brilliant. Great player. Love that.
Okay.
Yours? My number 2 is Fat Ronaldo.
Oh my God.
What a player. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like he similar to not so Fat Ronaldo. He did it all over the place as well. So he played in different leagues around the world and he was amazing in every single league. And then he also dominated one World Cup and should have dominated the second World Cup. But he was just, again, he was the same as a out-and-out striker. So Rush for me is amazing. Robbie Fowler, amazing striker. But Ronaldo was just ridiculous because you couldn't get the ball off him. So, and he moved at pace with the ball. He was going that fast that players couldn't even keep up with him when he was running with the ball. That tells you how fast he's going.
Did he play for
PSV?
PSV,
Barcelona,
under Bobby Robson, wasn't it? And
Inter Milan.
Inter Milan, yeah.
I mean, top sides. You don't play for them. And I think when you talk about Messi, and he's brilliant, but these other players have done it in other countries, some of them. And I think sometimes that elevates you a little bit more.
Definitely.
Messi, he's amazing, you know. But yeah, Fat Ronaldo, what a guy.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
I know I've seen some stats for Fat Ronaldo recently, and his percentage of goals where he's gone round the goalkeeper was something like 40% of his goals he's gone round the goalkeeper. Absolutely magic.
Thomas, I don't want to say nothing. Obviously, people who see me play know I wasn't a goal scorer, but one goal a year I got, and I went round the goalkeeper. And for 5 years, Simon wasn't.
Unfortunately, I did see the odd one of them.
Yeah, you don't want to see them. They're not the kind of goals you want to be seeing from Darren, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
So yeah,
so this is it then. This is it. Who's the number ones?
So Thomas, go on, number one.
I'm having connection issues here.
Why? We can still hear you.
I bet it's a Liverpool player.
Of course, it's a Liverpool player. All right, so we can't hear us. So Daz, come on, why don't you do yours?
Okay, so I'll do mine. Might not shock you because he's a great player, but I went for Paolo Maldini.
Oh, great player. Outstanding.
Because I just felt for me, we both have the looks. We're very, very blessed like that.
Well, I mean, that's one way to talk about it.
He was. It's just the way he defend. I mean, I'm a defender, so looking at him, he played left back to begin with. Then he went centre half and left back, and he was just epitomised the art of defending. And that art of defending, I think, is going out the game. And people are always trying to attack, which is fine. But even great players get done defensively now. And Maldini, I don't think did. He just
don't. You shouldn't mention Maldini to Thomas because he scored against us in the final. So it's not a name that Thomas likes.
To be fair,
we won the final, so I don't care.
So it's all good.
So for me, he played that famous Milan defence, of course, with Baresi.
Oh, Baresi was unbelievable, though, wasn't he?
Oh, class. But Baresi was just class as well. But I think Maldini learned a lot from him. And he only played for one club, Maldini, if I'm right. I could be wrong. And I just think you don't stay at AC Milan for 17 years or whatever it was.
Do you not think he got better as he got older as well? Because
he did. And he was clever about his game because as you get older, I mean, you know, we all know this, you get a little bit slower, Si. You do.
No, I don't believe you, mate. I don't believe you.
Honestly, I mean, I've lost inches off mine at my pace.
You haven't got inches to lose.
I haven't, no. I'm quicker going backwards, someone said. And he just got, when you watch him, and it's like watching a painter paint. It's just an artist. And I love him for that. I just think he's not valued enough in world football.
All right, so I agree. However, my challenge would be that he played in the Italian league, and the reason he did so well was because the game was really slow. Because he was not... Actually, he had a bit of pace about him, but he didn't have to move fast. And what you've seen in the Italian league over the years is a lot of players late in their career have gone into the Italian league and done really well because it's just much slower now.
Phone call yourself,
you'll be there in 5 minutes. But I think ability-wise, he was amazing. But I just think it's really difficult to judge him because he played in a league that just suited his game perfectly.
It is,
I totally agree. You took the words out of my mouth.
He
wasn't the quickest. He wasn't the quickest player. He read the game absolutely amazing. Yeah. He also had two brilliant players in central midfield right the way through his whole career.
Oh God, yeah.
Because Milan were the great side all the way through. So we had the likes of Seedorf, all different quality players around him. And like Simon hit the nail on the head, the speed of the game in Italy is really slow. And it was all about destroying their game plan rather than let's go and win the game. And then they'd get it up front and they'd knock it up to the likes of Clive to the yard. Then they had Van Basten over the years. And they'd win 1-0 a lot of games. And then their job was just to destroy any space that was on the pitch. And so technically and tactically outstanding.
The Italian league is more, I think it's more, years ago in the 90s, 80s, 90s, was a lot tactical. And I think when you've got players like Maldini, it's easy to do a throwaway comment because of the other players, I think, around them.
Absolutely.
And I think you've got to be very careful in that, what you're actually looking for, because I think, for me, there was no finer defender and being Maldini, and defenders don't always get applauded they deserve, by the way.
Yeah, you're right, but you are part of the defenders union, so
I'm the chairman of the defenders union.
All right, you've had enough of defenders now. Let's get back to number ones. All right, Tom, who have you got? Hang on. If this is not a Liverpool player, then we might as well start again. Yeah. Who is it, Tom?
My number one.
Yeah.
Luis Suarez.
Oh, nice. Oh.
Luis Suarez is the most skillful player. The desire to win, he'd bite your ear off to get past you. He could nutmeg a mermaid. The amount of nutmegs I've seen in a game he'd play. He was just, in the 2014 season, he was the best player on the planet. Yeah, no one was even close to him. He just destroyed everyone. He scored 40-odd goals and he got banned for 7 games. He missed the first 7 games. He is the greatest player I have seen. And if he wouldn't... I've been watching a lot of Premiership greatest over the last couple of weeks. There's been nothing on.
Yeah.
And he hasn't featured in hardly any. And the reason why he hasn't featured in any is because he only was at Liverpool for a short period of time and he had a couple of big bans. He scored a ridiculous amount of goals in a short period of time and really could have gone on to be the greatest footballer the Premiership's seen. And I think even though it was only a short period of time, he's the best player I've ever seen.
For me, there's no doubt on his ability. His ability was phenomenal. And at that time as well, Liverpool played to his style. Definitely. And that suited him a lot. I'm not going to knock his ability on the pitch. I just think that win at all costs attitude sometimes got the better of him. And I'm not his biggest fan in terms of what he's done in the game. But I think he's an outstanding footballer.
Yeah, I agree. Again, in terms of the players that we've seen in recent years, he's up there with in the top 5 in the last 4 to 5 years, and he's amazing now at Barcelona. To go from Liverpool, where he was an absolute legend and a star and ran the game, him and Gerrard were just unbelievable at that stage, and then to go to Barcelona and make that team better. And think about who that team had in it at the time. It was crazy. They had people like Iniesta and Xavi and Messi. It was a ridiculous team. Neymar. In fact, to be fair, he made Neymar look really ordinary, and then obviously Neymar goes because Suarez just took the limelight away from him. He was amazing. Great player.
Yeah, because when he went, I was often thinking, how is that going to work? But it worked.
Me too.
It worked.
Yeah, I mean,
by Neymar going.
Back to the England question from before. If you had a coach like they've got, or you had one of the modern day coaches, they'd have made it work. Like Liverpool have got the 3 up front now. If those 3 players would have been playing for Liverpool 10 years ago, they wouldn't be playing up front together. They'd play 1 forward, 2 in behind, or 1 forward, 1 in behind, 1 in the 10 role. You wouldn't play 3 up front.
And I think what happens now is coaches in the modern game are more fluent with their formations in the game before the game as well. So that they're saying things like, we're going to start off with a 4-4-2, but actually when it's flowing, it becomes a 3-5-2 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think the modern game's set up for that. And I think people like Pep and other coaches of that ilk, Klopp and that, they've got to take a lot of credit for that.
Yeah,
coming away from that British 4-4-2.
Especially in the English league, because if you think about the way it was played for so long, it was, have someone up front who's going to knock it down to a little fella who's got a bit of ability to put in a net. Yeah. You look at the game now in England, and it's much more like the Spanish game was 5-10 years ago, where your midfield is so important to winning you the game. But I think it's one of the reasons why Liverpool have done so well with the three up front is people really struggle with that amount of pressure so far up the park. Whereas if you've got a really strong midfield, but you're not pressuring the ball up the park, and a lot of teams do that, they park the bus, then it's a very different game. But what Liverpool do is they're putting pressure on you in the final third. That's difficult to deal with.
I also think what they do very well is they have a system where both fullbacks play high.
Yeah.
And they have that centre mid who drops in for that almost like a 2-1 at the back, if that makes sense, like a triangle. And I think Liverpool's high fullbacks allow them to press high.
Yeah.
And when they, for me. So who was your number one side?
So my number one was someone we've already talked about. It was Zidane.
Right, okay.
So again,
can you do the movement Thomas did? Because I'd be very.
I can't, mate. My hips can't move that way. I remember playing once against Waterloo Dock, and Anthony Battle, who I loved. And actually, he's a really nice fella away from football. But me and him had some great battles when we were playing footy. We'd had a really good battle in the game, and it was one of the games where we did really well against him. And he was getting really pissed off. It was actually on the Dockers. And about an hour in, I hit him with a tackle, took the ball and took him as well, and then passed the ball. And he started giving me crap, and he said, "You're only here to win tackles and headers."
You are the chumps of the French team.
Basically, yeah. To be fair, he had people like Joey Roberts and Liam Hewson playing in midfield with him, so he was surrounded by quality players. But I'm only here to win headers and tackles. But Zidane for me and you mentioned it earlier, he was a magician. The way what he did with the ball and how he moved the ball. The only other person that I've seen do that live is Messi. I've not seen anyone else who's got that ability on the ball. And I just think of some of the goals he scored. That goal he scored in the Euros where he scored the volley at Hampden Park.
It was the European Cup final.
Oh, yeah, it was European Cup final. And he scored the volley. It was unbelievable. It dropped out of the sky and he hit it first time. He's just... he was just unbelievable. And his ability was outstanding. And then I probably watched the same thing as you recently, Thomas, just showed like a montage of some of the skills he did in a game. Yeah. Even Messi, I don't think gets close.
So for me, I think I didn't appreciate Zidane as much when I was younger watching him play than I do now.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I think it was. He always came across to me as someone who just floats in the game.
Yeah.
But then he'd do something you're thinking, oh, that's brilliant. And I think that was part of his charm. When he played in that Real Madrid side, he could do that. He just floated around, got the ball wherever he wanted to, did a little something, and something happened.
Think about the players he had around him as well. It was just that his team was ridiculous.
Yeah, and when you've got good players around you, it makes your game better because they can see your pass.
But then I think one of the things that drives that though is we're in the UK, we're in England, where the game is really strong, and it has been for our lifetime. So there's loads of football to watch. There's loads of quality football. It's always competitive. So although I watched other football, I never really got into anything outside of Spain or Italy. Never really watched France. Never really watched French football. Never really watched Dutch football. Never really watched German football, maybe in later years. So you don't get exposed to players like that. And then all of a sudden he broke onto the scene and he was doing well in the World Cup and stuff. And it was like, where's he been? I mean, he was in France. He was brilliant in France.
So who did he play for in France?
Was it Marseille? Olympique Marseille? But apparently he was brilliant there as well. My point is that you would never know. I guess that's the point, is that you would never know because who watches French football? Yeah,
and I think the thing for me, we have this global football network now where we didn't then.
Yeah.
So you got snippets of the Italian league, snippets of Spanish leagues, but you didn't know much what was going on.
No.
Apart from the Welsh league, obviously, you knew all the players in the Welsh league. You were mostly from Liverpool, I think.
Yeah, all on Welsh match of the day. All right, so listen, we've done half an hour, so I think we'll call it a day there.
Yeah,
so that was a lot of fun for the first session.
Well done.
Yeah.
So I'll see you on the next one.
See you soon. Take care, guys.
Later.